Good morning, everyone, and welcome to FPC Radio Live, and it is Friday, the 24th of March. That's right, we are almost done with this wonderful, wonderful month of March, and I say that with all sarcasm included because, well, really, March is March. We don't have any playoffs. We don't have any football. We did have the World Baseball Classic. That was nice. But for the most part, March is kind of a dull month, unless you're a big, obviously, college basketball fan and then March Madness. But I never watched college basketball close enough to actually put together an educated bracket. So it was never a particularly fun time for me this part of March. So however, I do enjoy any time the Bruins beat up on the Canadians, and that did happen last night. So I'm pretty happy.
I'm sure you should be, right? I mean, another victory for the Bruins.
5 in a row.
Incredible. 55, 11, and 5. It's mind-blowing. And to think that they've had actually 16 losses this year, I can't really remember 16 losses. Right?
They're so far, so spread apart.
Yeah, I'm like, when did they lose those 16 games? Because it doesn't feel like they ever lose. And it was unfortunate that was the first time the Canadians came into Boston this year. Their only appearance. Again, we have 32 teams, and you want to have a home and home against the other conference. You know, you're going to only have so many games against teams within your own division. My proposal was, think about this, Ian. Like, of the four major sports, hockey is fourth for me. But what I would do is you have 32 teams in the league, right? You have 7 within your own division. I would play every team in your division 6 times. Mm-hmm. That's 42 games. Then I would play the other teams in your conference home and home. So the Bruins would play the Rangers at home and home. There's another 16 games, right? So that gets you up to 58 games.
58 games. I was about to say.
I'm good with math. I'm the one guy on Sports Talk Radio that's actually pretty good with math. Maybe not so good with English. And then what I would do is I would have 24 games against the other conference. I would play a home and home with one of the divisions in the other conference one year, and then a home and home with the other division in the other conference once a year, and then just, alternate. So you play 24 non-conference games. You have to have the Bruins playing teams within the division more often. I think, obviously, even like Toronto and Montreal, they're in the same division. They don't play as often as they should.
No, look, I agree with that. I mean, I'd much rather put more of an emphasis on, East Coast and say Atlantic Division teams playing East Coast and Atlantic Division teams as opposed to, trying to get it fair across the board, because it's like, look, I mean, that obviously has more implications. And look, I mean, last night was a great, they got all their angst out in that one matchup in Boston last night, because it was a very classic Bruins Montreal game last night. Very chippy, very, borderline, dirty on both sides. I mean, this is just how it is. I mean, this rivalry is, I mean, you look at guys like Garnet Hathaway and Dmitry Orlov, these guys that the Bruins acquire, and this is their first taste of Bruins Canadians. And you can almost see the hatred for the Canadians in their eyes. And it's almost like you put that Bruins jersey on it. And likewise, if you put a Canadians jersey on, you just have that seething hatred for that other team. And like, I find it funny now with like, PK Subban is obviously on ESPN commentating, and you can tell, and he's not shy. He doesn't shy away from it. Like, he hates the Bruins. And I love that. You know why? Because like, I think it just makes the rivalry great. And it makes games like last night, between two teams on polar opposite ends of the spectrum right now, it made it impactful last night. And look, I mean, the Bruins didn't play their best game last night. The Canadians, for a significant portion of that game, really kind of controlled the pace. They outshot the Bruins. But this is something that, and again, this is what is the most impressive thing about this Bruins team, is they will take that slow start, and then you open up the door just a sliver for them to make a play, and they're going to do it. And that's what happened last night. Like, they won the game 4-2, but this was a lot closer than it seemed. And at the end of the day, though, it never felt like the Bruins were out of control, even though they were getting almost outshot by 2-1. at one point in the game, but they still held a 2-goal lead for the most part. So very entertaining game last night. And again, I mean, this is a Bruins team that is now with 11 games left. They are 7 away from tying the wins record, and obviously 8 away from surpassing that with 63 wins. And it seems like something that's almost inevitable at this point. And if you were watching the Bruins broadcast, they put up a graphic basically breaking down the Bruins run for every 10 games throughout the season, because that was game 71 last night. So they had a nice 7 stretch example, and the consistency was remarkable. I think there was only one stretch of 10 games where they only won 6 games out of those 10. Everything else was 7, 8, 8-2. The scoring differential was pretty much identical, and that is some remarkable consistency.
I just think it's the fact that they can play any style, right? I mean, they can win 7-5,
well,
they can win 2-1,
and that kind of speaks
different ways to beat you, right?
And that speaks to, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that consistency over each 10-game stretch throughout the season really speaks to that, because it doesn't really matter, like you said, who they were playing, what part of the season it was, where they were, who was in the lineup, who was out of the lineup. It's just remarkable consistency.
Yeah, because, I mean, really, when you look at it, 3 of the last 4 teams to eliminate them played kind of a hard style, right?
Oh,
St.
sure.
Louis in the Stanley Cup Finals, Carolina last year, the year before the Islanders. Look, Tampa beat them in 2020, and Tampa went on and won the Cup. And so did St. Louis, obviously. But those 3 teams that I mentioned all play that kind of grinded style, and now the Bruins can beat that as well because they're so deep.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, when you're looking at their forward group, someone really good is going to be the 13th forward and be out of the lineup, provided Foligno and Taylor Hall are back healthy. Like, who's going to be the odd man out? That's a very pleasant problem to have from a team that for so many years, and you've said this a million times, and you're right on spot with it, basically had a line and a half, right? You had the perfection line, and then you get some production. I mean, when you've got a Hart Trophy winner on your third line, once Taylor Hall comes back, that's deep.
Yeah. No, and look, I mean, it's not just the forward group too; it's the defense pairings. I mean, you're gonna have a situation where you might have to sit down a guy like Trent Frederick or Thomas Nosek, 2 guys that again, by virtue of just the numbers that they have, assuming, like you said, Foligno and Taylor Hall come back, and both are, Foligno's skating on his own again. Taylor Hall, the expectation is that he'll be back soon as well. So, all of a sudden you're getting this influx of talent. Now, again, Taylor Hall is not the 50 goal scorer MVP or 40 goal scorer MVP that he was when he was with the Devils and won that MVP. But again, you put him on a third and fourth line, and it's kind of unfair because his talent is clearly better than that. But based on the depth of this team, and like Foligno, former captain, there was a poll. They posted this, or they displayed this on the screen last night as well. There was a poll from the NFL, NHLPA, just superlative sort of thing. Most the player you don't want to play against type of thing. Brad Marchand was up there, not surprisingly. But the best leaders, and Nick Foligno came in 5th. And this is a guy that has a reputation of being a great locker room guy. And obviously when, he starts to produce like he has this season when he was healthy, that's a huge advantage for this Bruins team who, like, again, just when you look at the construct of this team, we're kind of seeing this with the Panthers, and the Blackhawks aren't in the playoff race, but this refusal to wear pride jerseys and hiding behind a religious I don't know, doctrine or whatever the hell you want to call it, it's just, to me, it's frustrating, and it's I don't know, there's a lot of things that it just drives me nuts, let's put it that way, because it to me it's just it's a very weak excuse to do something so simple and just good-hearted. I mean, it's not that hard to do, and it's not like, again, and I've seen some people say this online. It's like they're not asking you to go, kiss another guy. Like, relax, people. It's a jersey, so, but the point being is, when you look at this Bruins team, there's not a doubt in my mind that all those guys are not for that. You know what I mean? There's a
Mhm.
very strong group of players in that locker room that have a lot of character, that have a lot of pride, no pun intended, uh, and a leadership. And again, you look at teams like the Panthers, who the Stahl brothers. Again, there's the funny thing is there's a video of Eric Stahl wearing a Pride jersey a couple of years ago with the Canadians, and here we are, with these silly excuses why teams or players refuse to do it for 15 minutes. I don't expect that from this Bruins team. And I know obviously that has nothing to do with what's being played on the ice, but the bigger point being is this team is so close, and just they have the right mindset in every aspect of what the current NHL is. Obviously on the ice, off the ice, and the issues that face this league right now, I feel like they are a prime and great example of how to do things. And it's, again, that's a good thing, and that's a good thing for a team going into the playoffs because they're playing great. They have very little weaknesses, and you don't look at something as silly as a player here and there refusing to wear a Pride jersey, threatening to tear it apart, which again, you're seeing on the Panthers. You have guys saying one thing, we include everyone, but then you have some of your leaders that are it can potentially be a mess, is what I'm saying. So I look at this Bruins team, and on the ice, short of their quote unquote struggles on the power play, I really don't see a flaw. I don't see a potential bomb waiting to go off the ice, because again, you look at the leadership, you look at the leaders on this team, and again, you don't expect um, situations like you're seeing with the Panthers and with the Blackhawks, with some of their players deciding not to, show support for, essentially human rights. And anyone who says otherwise is, well, prejudice. So, um,
Well, with Foligno being a leader, and obviously it starts with Patrice Bergeron as the captain, who is a guy who
oh,
treats
yeah.
everybody the right way. And I still think there's the remnants of Zdeno Chara, who was here for
Oh,
15
sure.
years and was the ultimate leader. When he was here, there was no bullying of rookies. There were never any problems with the media. Look, I can tell you, I went into that locker room probably 12 to 15 times over a couple of year period when I was working at the Herald. We'd go in and do interviews with the guys. I have said this a million times. Hockey players by far the best athletes to deal with. Just class acts. I mean, I remember walking out of the locker room after a playoff loss, and Patrice Bergeron actually held the door for me and my videographer. Like no other athlete would do that in any other sport. I mean, basketball players, are so stuck up in the air literally, and baseball players couldn't care less about people. And I was like, just thank you. And he said, no problem. And it's just like this a stupid story I'm relaying, but just kind of shows you that they're just good people. And I just think, and again, you're the hockey player here. I'm not. I don't even know how to skate, but I think it's just the way you have to break through in that sport. Like the early practices and 2-hour rides to games and what commitment it is and how much of it is about teamwork and all that, that when they get to the pro level, they're just totally invested in each other.
Well, and these are, and again, the reason we bring a lot of this stuff up is one, obviously, to praise the Bruins, but it's crucial when you're talking about heading into a tournament as intense as the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the Bruins have been, I mean, look, they clinched what feels like weeks ago. I love the graphic the NHL keeps putting up on Twitter, where it's like they have the little block images of all the team logos, and they're all kind of, you know, blacked out a little bit, except for the Bruins one. And the question is, who will clinch next? And it's been like that for weeks. They're the only team
Mm-hmm.
that's lit up, and it again, it's it speaks to how great their season is. But when you're looking for, well, can they do this in the playoffs? Well, obviously, you look at the on ice product, and you got to say you're confident. But it's also, again, who is leading this team? Who are the leaders? Who are going to keep this team focused? And again, from every angle you look at it, you cannot not be as confident as possible in everything that this Bruins team is doing right now, from on the ice, off the ice, and it's it's exciting as a fan, obviously, but even if you're a hockey fan, there is part of you that should maybe not enjoy but should be intrigued by this team's record setting pace, so to speak. Because again, I mean, we're talking about now that a team that's plus 115 on the season in terms of goal differential, and very easily the best mark by a significant margin we've seen in 30 plus years. And that's only going to get better. At this pace, you're likely going to see them finish in the plus 125 range, which again, you're talking about some of the best teams, at least of modern history. I mean, we go back, we talked about the Canadians the other day in 76, and they were like plus 216. So that's out of reach. I mean, that's 1976. That's 40 over almost 50 years ago. We don't need to necessarily bring them up, but when we talk about the last 25 to 30 years, certainly in the salary cap era, I mean, the Bruins are just blowing other teams, other great teams of the last 25 years out of the water. Again, it's not going to mean much. Well, it's not going to be as significant, let's put it that way, if they don't win a Stanley Cup. But right now, again, and I've said it over and over again, I cannot be right now. I am not convinced that any team right now will even come close to beating them 4 out of 7.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're talking about a team with 11 regulation losses this year, and we're almost done with the season. The only black mark on this team this year was back in October, November, when they signed
the Mitchell
crazy defenseman. Yeah, Mitchell. That's it, and it kind of lingered for a while, then they rectified it, right? Because it was just a bad move, a bad look. That's the only thing. Like, as far as we've heard nothing about any player-coach relationships that haven't been good.
Nope.
McAvoy and Marchand were supposed to be out a lot longer than they were. Like, I think the Celtics should hire the Bruins training staff.
Donnie Del Negro, man. He's been there forever.
You get a Paisan involved,
yeah.
you know? I mean, Bob Essenza, I think the goalie, what's his name? Mr. Goalie, the goalie coach for the Bruins.
Yeah, Bob Essenza.
Bob Essenza, another Paisan. This is what you got to do. You got to bring Paisans into the organization more and more, and we'll figure all these things out. We're really good at this stuff. But yeah, the Bruins are always getting guys back earlier. I mean, and again, hockey players are tougher than basketball players. It's not even a discussion. But the Celtics, the guys are supposed to be out 7 to 10 days. They're out for like a month.
Yeah.
So, maybe the Celtics could just get the Bruins training staff and things will work out okay.
I wouldn't mind that. Although, again, I don't want them to take focus away. But, going back to your point earlier, and this is, kind of another notch on the Bruins leadership. That situation could have derailed what was an incredible start for the Bruins. Because all of a sudden you basically give yourself a self-inflicted wound with that signing, and Don Sweeney obviously acknowledged that it was and Cam Neely acknowledged that it was poor judgment. But imagine what that could have done to that locker room, mm-hmm. and that team and their focus, and it did none of it. And again, I mean, we're talking about the players. Jim Montgomery. I mean, you cannot not mention what he's done with this team. Specifically, and maybe this is just a coincidence. I mean, who knows? But right now, there is a lot of, at the very least, circumstantial evidence to suggest that the switch from Bruce Cassidy to Jim Montgomery completely turned Jake DeBrusk's career around, because he's been, aside from that stretch of time that he missed, when he's healthy, he's lived up to everything that people have expected him to be. And he had another phenomenal goal yesterday. Just great instincts, great speed, great puck control, and just an exciting goal again. This is what I think a lot of people expected from him early on, and something we haven't seen certainly consistently. But now we're seeing it, and he's a big reason why this team is so deep and so, they're top heavy, because they have 2 great top lines. But they're also bottom heavy as well. So, because relative to other teams' 3rd and 4th lines, they kind of blow them out of the water. So, just again, another. I mean, they've just won 5 in a row. They have the best winning streak in hockey again. They've been at the top of the league for months. I mean, really since the start of the season. They start the season 11-1, 12-1. Mm-hmm. So at no point have they relinquished that top seed. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's pretty incredible just to just to see it play out. And again, I always enjoy a little Montreal beatdown. It's always fun. It's always fun.
Yeah, Bruins fans do. I mean, as I said many times, they ruined my childhood. I'm going to be 60 next month, and I just never assumed the Bruins would ever beat the Canadians because they never did until 1988. So, by then they'd won like 14 straight playoff series against them, including 1971 when that was still the greatest Bruins team ever. Although if this one wins the cup, this will go down as the greatest Bruins team ever. And the Canadians upset them in the first round in 7 games. So, yeah, they ruined my childhood, led by Ken Dryden. They just couldn't beat them. Then again, no one did.
Well, and look, I mean, if this team wins the Stanley Cup, I mean, you're obviously not just greatest Bruins team. You're talking about one of the best teams in NHL history.
Sure.
I mean, yep. And again, I mean, that's and trust me, the NHL has a long, long history. So there is a lot. There are many teams that have come through and have not played, obviously, to the level of the Bruins. I'm not saying they'd have the best team because, again, I mean, that Canadiens team is just not going to be touched. But, I mean, they are clearly argue the best team in the last 25, 30 years, individual season-wise. Obviously,
individual season.
Yeah,
right.
Because, I mean, obviously, okay, well, if they go on to win a few like maybe this inspires Patrice Bergeron to play one more season next year. Same with David Krejci, and you kind of run it back. They win back-to-back, all that stuff. Then you can talk about it from that perspective. But right now, you got easily. You can argue the best Bruins team of all time. Again, if they go on and win a cup, and again, say they go 16-4 or 16-5 in the playoffs, you just run ragged over basically do what they're doing now in the regular season, in the postseason, then you can really make the case for their historical standing among not just obviously other Bruins teams, but other teams of the past. So
if they do that, Ian, they would essentially be the 2018-2019 Tampa Bay Lightning in the regular season and the Tampa Bay Lightning in their back-to-back Stanley Cup run. Like, that's how dominant they would be if they were able to pull something like that off, right? Because Tampa in 2018-19, that regular season was just dominant, and then they get swept by Columbus in the first round, but then they followed up with back-to-back cups. But to do that all in 1 year, they'd be kind of like the 85 Bears, right? Like, it just was much the best team that year.
Well, think about it. I mean,
if they do that.
Look, I think the Bruins are going to get to 63 wins. I think that's where they're going to land. They're going to get the 8 they're going to need to break the record. Excuse me. And then you're talking about another 16 if they go on and win a cup. You're talking about 79 wins or 78 wins in a season. Oh no, yeah, 79. My math has been terrible today.
Will you let me handle the math?
Yeah, I'll let you handle the math.
Okay.
At one point in my life, I used to take advanced math classes. Clearly, that didn't pay off in the long run. A long time ago. I can't even count that high. See, I kind of lost all that a long time ago. But that's the thing. It's like you're talking about a team with 79 wins on the season and potentially fewer, likely fewer than 20 losses.
Who's going to have more wins this year, the Bruins or the Red Sox?
That's a good question, actually.
That's a good poll, right?
Yeah, I like that. We'll put that up on at FPC Radio Live. So, all right, we only have a few minutes left, and I do want to bring up the growing speculation or expectation, rather, or I don't know, maybe a little bit of both, because it seems to sometimes it's a fine line between those two things. The growing speculation that Odell Beckham Jr. will be joining the New York Jets whenever Aaron Rodgers officially gets signed there. And John, I believe I said this at the beginning of last week that it was probably going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Odell Beckham Jr. has wanted to play with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's wanted to play with Tom Brady too, but obviously, unless they're going to team up on the Las Vegas Aces, which there's a lot of things that would have to happen for them to be able to do that. It's not going to happen. Okay. So obviously Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, Odell Beckham Jr. Returning to New York. So this isn't that far fetched to think like, yeah, hey, he can go back to New York where he really, forged his stardom, so to speak, but do it with the other team that plays in the Meadowlands and with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So, look, I think it'd be a smart move by the Jets. I mean, look, if you're the Jets and you're going out and you're getting Aaron Rodgers, you give him absolutely everything you think he needs to succeed. And you put Odell Beckham Jr. on this current Jets team with who they have already, and you have potentially, John, the most talent he's had across the board. I still think Devontae Adams is by far the best receiver. I think he's better than Odell Beckham Jr. But in terms of, deep offensive talent, I don't think he's had a more deep roster. Again, assuming Odell Beckham Jr. Joins this team.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson will be his number one because he's going into his second year. He's the reigning NFL Offensive Player of the Year, Rookie Player of the NFL Rookie Offensive Player of the Year. There's a mouthful. Now Odell Beckham becomes your number two. Lazard is a nice number three. McCole Hardman is a kind of a gadget guy that you can do a lot of things with. Look, if Aaron Rodgers teams up with Odell Beckham Jr., it essentially would be football's version of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, which is going to be a lot of beautiful football, but it could implode at some moment because of their personalities. I think Odell Beckham would love playing with Aaron Rodgers. Clearly, they're the best quarterback he's ever played with. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? I mean, there'd be games where they hook up on certain plays that would be breathtaking, without question. It's just now the Jets have to finalize this deal with Green Bay, which I think is going to happen. I mean, is Green Bay going to be that stubborn and hold out till they get exactly what they want? I propose a second-round pick this year and a conditional second-round pick next year, and just get it done.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's going to get done. Look, everyone's treating it like it is done. I mean, you see these national networks coming out with their top quarterbacks in each conference, and they're just assuming that Aaron Rodgers is already a member of the Jets. So it's like it's the worst kept secret in all the sports. It's going to happen. These two teams are haggling, and again, it's for whatever reason, whether it's bitterness on part of the Packers, whether it's stubbornness on behalf of the Jets and not including a certain return or what have you, who knows? Eventually it's going to happen because look, the Packers have already moved on. It doesn't, we talked about this a little bit, I believe last week, like, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst. Like if they wanted to take the hit and keep him on the roster, they could play this out as long as they want. But the reality of it is it behooves both teams. Okay. That's my English comes in handy, not my math. It behooves both teams.
Love that word.
I do too. That and Pentultimate is one of my favorite. I love using that.
Another great one.
Another good one.
Hey, 6 years of Latin. I'm pretty good with the vocabulary. Sometimes I put it in the wrong spot though.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll blame your eyes for that one.
Well, you can blame my eyes for everything that I do wrong.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, so it's like, it behooves both those parties, the Jets and the Packers, to get this deal done because, at the end of the day, I mean, it's just the Jets don't. First of all, the Jets don't have another option. Really, they would have to. I don't know. Matt Ryan. I think you brought that up last week. Maybe Matt Ryan is the backup plan, but that's a terrible backup plan if you're the Jets and you have Super Bowl aspirations. So, but at the end of the day, look, the Packers have moved on. Jordan Love is their guy. The Jets obviously are building their team like they have a quarterback. So yeah, it's going to get done. When? Who knows? Is it going to wait till after the draft? I saw someone tweet that maybe it's going to happen after the draft so they can get better future picks. But I don't know. I mean, that just feels like reporting things to report them. So, but it's going to get done, and it's going to be interesting to see because I do believe that Odell Beckham Jr. will end up going to the Jets, which will create maybe a bigger market, a more intense market or desperate market rather for DeAndre Hopkins. But that's a discussion for another day. So, Aaron Rodgers to Odell Beckham Jr. could be fun.
Be sweet. Again, Durant and Kyrie Irving,
yeah.
Same exact dynamic. That's who I've compared both of those guys to, and putting them together would be beautiful music. Could be some issues, but I think they'd be on their best behavior because it's a new situation, and I think Aaron Rodgers wants to win that second Super Bowl, and this could be a real good opportunity for him to do so.
Yeah. Oh, I 100%. Like I said it before. I mean, there is nothing there's no other player currently right now that would get more benefit from a second championship than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you're talking about a guy who could, in the long run, be considered a top 15 quarterback or in that very exclusive top 10. I mean, that's really what we're talking about right now, especially now, like, their overreaction to Patrick Mahomes winning a second Super Bowl. That doesn't do Aaron Rodgers any good in the long run. So he goes out, he wins with the Jets, a team that, again, hasn't won since the moon landing. That's going to go a long way. So, excuse me. That's going to do it for us here today. We will be back on Monday, though, and we will maybe have Lamar Jackson news, maybe have Aaron Rodgers news, maybe have no news. Who knows? We'll see. We'll find out. We'll talk about whatever's up there on the docket on Monday. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you then. Have a great weekend.